She said, "I'm not perfect at all." I whispered, "Perfect is boring anyway. You're extraordinary." A mature age gap romance. The cathedral smelled like centuries, stone dust and incense ghosts, rain-soaked wood and something metallic I couldn't name. Wind whistled through broken stained glass, carrying the October chill into what used to be the nave. I stood there with blueprints rolled under my arm, surveying the damage from the fire that had gutted St. Catherine's 8 months ago. The bishop had hired me to resurrect it. At 42, I'd restored 11 historical buildings across 3 states. I knew how to read bones. "You're earlier than I expected." I turned. She stood in the eastern transept doorway, backlit by September sun filtering through the destroyed rose window. Mid-20s. Maybe. Dark hair pulled into a practical braid, wearing paint-stained jeans and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled to her elbows. She carried a photographer's camera bag and a surveyor's measuring tape. "Julian Thorne," I said, "the restoration architect. Your father, Bishop Castellan, said someone from the preservation committee would meet me." "That's me, Clara." She walked toward me, and that's when I noticed the hitch in her stride, slight but deliberate. The way someone moves when they've spent years perfecting compensation. Her left leg, her footsteps echoed unevenly on the stone floor. She caught me noticing and her jaw tightened. "I have a master's in architectural history from Columbia. The prosthetic is carbon fiber and titanium. Any other observations you'd like to make before we start?" The air went sharp between us. I was going to say, "You carry that measuring tape like you know how to use it?" Something flickered in her expression's surprise. Maybe, or the beginning of respect. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell her shampoo. Lavender and something woodsy. Cedar, perhaps. Car accident when I was 19. Drunk driver ran a red light. I spent 2 years learning to walk again. She said it like a challenge, daring me to flinch. I didn't. My ex-wife left me because I chose saving a condemned theater over her ultimatum to quit and take a corporate job. I haven't dated anyone in 3 years because apparently I'm emotionally unavailable and married to dead buildings. I unrolled the blueprints. "Let's support it. We all have our damage. You want to show me where the structural engineer found the load-bearing compromise?" Her eyes, brown, flecked with amber in the slanting light, searched my face. Then she smiled. It was small, guarded, but genuine. "Follow me." We fell into a rhythm. 3 times a week, I drove the 40 minutes from my apartment in the city to St. Catherine's. Clara was always there first, documenting damage with her camera or taking measurements for the historical preservation reports she'd compile. The diocese had given her a small stipend to work as the project's historical consultant. It wasn't much, but she'd taken a leave from her PhD program at Columbia to do this. "My father's life work," she'd said once, running her hand along a charred pew. I couldn't let strangers be the only ones who cared. She was 25, 17 years younger than me. She'd grown up in this cathedral. Her mother had died when she was 16, and Bishop Castellan had poured himself into this building afterward. She took her coffee black, hated small talk, and had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. "Why architecture?" she asked one afternoon. We were in the bell tower, examining the structural damage to the wooden frame that had supported the bells before the fire. October wind cut through the empty arches, carrying the smell of rain. I braced my hand against a charred beam. My grandfather was a carpenter. Taught me that buildings have souls, you just have to listen. I knocked on the wood. The sound was hollow, defeated. This one's screaming that it needs replacing. "But you'll save what you can. Always." I turned to find her watching me, her camera hanging forgotten around her neck. "Why'd you leave Columbia?" She looked out at the city skyline, visible through the tower's arched windows. "Because perfect institutions don't really care about people like me. I spent 2 years proving myself, working twice as hard for half the recognition. Then my father called about the fire, and I realized I'd rather rebuild something real than keep performing for people who'll never see past this." She tapped her left leg with her knuckles. The sound of metal on carbon fiber rang out, sharp and clear. "Their loss." "That's what you're supposed to say." "I mean it." The words came out rougher than I intended. "You see things other people miss. The way you documented that water damage pattern in the sacristy, you connected it to the original 1,000 890 seconds plumbing system. That saved us 2 weeks of investigation. Pink touched her cheeks. She ducked her head, but I caught the smile. You're good at this. At what? Making me forget why I usually hate working with people. I laughed, surprising myself. The feeling's mutual. The first time I really touched her, was accident, masquerading as necessity. We were in the crypt beneath the cathedral, examining the foundation stones by the light of our headlamps. The space was tight, walls pressing close, ceiling low enough that I had to duck. Clara was ahead of me when her prosthetic caught on an uneven stone. She pitched forward. I lunged, catching her waist, pulling her back against my chest. For 3 heartbeats, neither of us moved. I could feel her breathing, fast and shallow. My hands spanned her rib cage, thumbs pressing just below her breasts. The air in the crypt was cold, but she was warm, and she smelled like that cedar shampoo and something underneath skin and salt and something sweetly human. I've got you, I said, and my voice came out low, almost rough. She turned in my arms a mistake, because now we were face to face in a space barely wide enough for one person, and her mouth was 6 inches from mine. Her pupils were dilated, black drowning out the brown. Julian. It was a warning. Or permission. I couldn't tell. I let her go and stepped back, putting stone and shadow between us. Careful. The floor's unstable. Right. She exhaled shakily. Unstable. We didn't talk about it. We finished the inspection in professional silence, but something had shifted. I started noticing things I shouldn't, the curve of her neck, the way she bit her lower lip when thinking. She started noticing me too. This is a bad idea, I told myself that night, alone in my apartment with a glass of bourbon and the cathedral blueprints spread across my kitchen table. She's the bishop's daughter. She's 25. You're the professional here. You're supposed to be the adult. But the next morning, when I arrived at St. Catherine's and found her in the nave with sunrise pouring through the broken windows, turning her hair to mahogany and gold, I knew I was lying to myself. Coffee? She held up a second cup from the cafe down the street. She drew in a sharp breath but didn't pull away as quickly as she should have. Neither did I. Clara, don't. She met my eyes. Whatever you're about to say to talk yourself out of this, don't. I'm not a child. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because I'm 42 years old. I'm divorced. I'm your father's employee. There are about 50 reasons why this I gestured between us is a terrible idea. Name one that actually matters. You deserve someone who isn't carrying 17 years more damage than you. She stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head down to meet her eyes. You think I'm looking for perfect? Julian, I've spent years being told I'm inspirational for doing basic things like walking across a room or finishing a degree. People either treat me like I'm fragile or like I'm a feel-good story for their Facebook feed. You're the first person in years who's looked at me like I'm just human, messy, real. Her voice dropped. So don't hide behind excuses. If you don't want me, say that. But don't make it about age or ethics or anything else. The cathedral was silent except for the wind in our breathing. I could walk away. I should walk away. I kissed her instead. It wasn't gentle. She made a small sound of surprise that dissolved into something else, something hungry, and then her hands were in my hair and mine were cupping her face and we were pressed together in a building dedicated to holiness, committing what would definitely be considered a sin by most of the people who'd worship here once I finished putting it back together. She tasted like coffee and something sweeter. Her mouth was soft and demanding, and when I broke away, we were both breathing hard. My apartment, I said. Not here. Not in your father's cathedral. She grabbed her jacket. Let's go. My apartment became our sanctuary. She'd text when she knew her father was occupied with evening services or diocesan meetings, and I'd leave the door unlocked. She had a key by the second week. I'd hear the lock turn, the door open quietly, and then she'd be there, shedding her coat and stepping into my arms like coming home. We were careful. In public at the cathedral, at the monthly preservation committee meetings, we were consummate professionals. Polite, collaborative, distant. But in private, we shed those careful layers. She cried during sex sometimes, not from pain but from relief at being wanted exactly as she was. She learned I had nightmares about my divorce, and she'd wake me gently, talking until the panic faded. One night, she made me go through a box of my ex-wife's things I'd never had the courage to throw away. "You're allowed to grieve something even when leaving was the right choice," she said, folding a wedding photo into the donation pile. "They're not mutually exclusive. We talked about everything except the future." That was the unspoken rule. We existed in a perpetual present tense, stealing hours and pretending the outside world couldn't touch us. But it could, and it did. It started with small things. Father Marcus, one of the younger priests, began watching us too closely during site visits. "The bishop's very invested in this project," he mentioned to me one morning. His tone casual, but his eyes sharp. He'd be devastated if anything complicated derailed it. I kept my face neutral. "The project's on schedule." "Of course." He smiled without warmth. "I'm sure Clara's assistance has been invaluable. Though she does seem quite dedicated. She's here even more than you are." It was a warning disguised as observation. That night, in my bed with Clara's head on my chest and winter rain drumming against the windows, I said, "We need to be more careful." "I know." She traced idle patterns on my skin. "Father Marcus cornered me yesterday, asked if I was comfortable working so closely with you, suggested I should think about going back to Columbia, finishing my PhD. What did you say? That my father hired you because you're the best, and I'm documenting the restoration for my dissertation." All true. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me. "Julian, I'm not naive. I know what happens if people find out. The diocese will fire you. My father will." Her voice cracked slightly. "I don't know what he'll do, but I know it'll destroy him." "Then maybe we don't." Her hand cupped my face. "Don't ask me to choose yet, please. Just give me until the restoration is finished. 6 more months. Then I'll deal with whatever comes after." I pulled her back down, holding her tightly enough to feel her heartbeat against mine. 6 months. It was a promise we both knew we might not be able to keep. The diocese announced a special dedication ceremony for Easter Sunday. Bishop Castellan wanted the cathedral substantially completed by then, a public demonstration of resurrection and renewal. It meant accelerated timelines, more subcontractors, more oversight, more eyes on us. Clara started working longer hours to document the rapid changes. I was at the site almost daily now, coordinating teams, solving problems, pushing against deadlines that felt increasingly impossible. We barely had time to see each other alone. When we did, it was desperate, like we were both trying to memorize each other against an approaching ending. "I'm falling in love with you," she whispered one night, her forehead pressed to mine, her body still trembling from orgasm. I didn't mean to, but I am. I kissed her eyelids, tasting salt. "I know. Me too. What are we going to do?" "I don't know." It was the most honest thing I'd ever said. Valentine's Day fell on a Tuesday. Clara couldn't get away. Her father had scheduled a special service and expected her there. I spent the evening alone in the cathedral, working by floodlight on the renovated altar area, trying not to think about what it meant that we couldn't even acknowledge the day. My phone buzzed at 1 p.m. A text from Clara. "Can you meet me? Bell Tower. Now." She was waiting when I climbed the stairs, wrapped in a heavy coat. The city sprawled below us, lights glittering like earthbound stars. "I couldn't let the day end without seeing you," she said. I pulled her close, burying my face in her hair. "Your father is asleep?" "I told him I was going home. I'll text that I'm staying at a friend's." She looked up at me, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of pretending you're just my professional colleague. I'm tired of measuring every word and second-guessing every glance. Clara, I know what I'm asking. I know what it'll cost. But I need you to know that I'm choosing you. On purpose. Completely. Whatever happens next, I'm choosing you." I kissed her there in the bell tower, in the building where she'd grown up, under the empty frames where bells would hang again once I finished resurrecting this place. It felt like sacrilege and sacrament all at once. "I'm choosing you too." I said against her mouth. Even though I shouldn't, even though it'll destroy things, I'm choosing you. We made love there that night, surrounded by stone and sky and incense ghosts. After, I looked out at the city and thought about consequences, about the bishop who'd trusted me, about the career I'd built, about the gossip that would follow Clara. I thought about walking away, but then she stirred in my arms, murmuring my name, and I knew I was too selfish for that. The whispers started subtly. I didn't notice them at first. I was too focused on meeting the Easter deadline, on coordinating the final installations, on making sure every detail was perfect. But Clara noticed. People are talking, she said one evening. Father Marcus has been asking questions about my schedule. My father's been different lately. Quieter. He watches me when he thinks I'm not looking. You think he knows? I think he suspects. Not at the cathedral, at his office in the diocesan headquarters downtown. The message came through his assistant, formal and cold. The bishop requests your presence Thursday at 2 p.m. to discuss project concerns. I went alone. The building was all polished marble and dark wood, centuries of institutional weight pressing down. His office was on the top floor, windows overlooking the city. He was standing when I entered, his back to me, hands clasped behind him. Thank you for coming, Mr. Thorne. He didn't turn around. Please, sit. I sat. He remained standing, and the power dynamic was deliberate. When he finally turned to face me, I saw something in his expression that made my chest tight. Not anger. Not yet. Something worse. Disappointment. And underneath it, fear. How long? He asked quietly. I could have lied. Should have lied. But looking at this man, this father, I couldn't. 4 months. Since November. He closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, they were bright with something that might have been tears. I'm sorry. You're 42 years old, Mr. Thorne. Divorced. I hired you because of your reputation. I trusted you with my life's work. And you. He stopped, his jaw working. My daughter has been through hell. The accident nearly killed her. She spent years building herself back up, and you saw that, and you? No. She's not a victim here. She's 25 years old. She's an adult. She has a master's degree. She's brilliant, and she knew what she was doing. I took a breath. I love her. The words hung in the air between us. Bishop Castellan stared at me, and I watched something shift in his face, the anger solidifying into something colder, more final. Love, he repeated. So your solution was a secret affair that will destroy her reputation? People will say she slept with you to influence the restoration. That she's... He stopped, breathing hard. Then, more quietly, do you know what terrifies me most? It's that you made her believe hiding was love. The words hit like physical blows because there was truth in them. I never wanted. I don't care what you wanted. His voice was steady now, but I could hear the tremor underneath. I care about my daughter. I care that she stopped confiding in me. I care that for the first time since her mother died, I don't recognize who she's becoming. And I care, his voice broke. I care that if I force you out, she might never forgive me. But if I don't, I'm endorsing something that's already cost her. I saw it then. This wasn't just anger or disappointment. This was a father watching his daughter slip away and being powerless to stop it. This was grief. What do you want me to do? I asked. He walked to his desk, pulled out an envelope. The contract is terminated, effective immediately. You'll hand over all project materials to your assistant. You'll make a public statement citing personal reasons for stepping down. You will have no further contact with Clara. He paused. If you fight this, if you try to continue this relationship, I will make sure every church, every historical society, every restoration board in this country knows what you did. You'll never work again. Let me talk to her. No. Bishop. Please, no. He looked at me, and his eyes were red-rimmed but dry. If you care about my daughter, even a fraction as much as you claim, you'll walk away. You'll let her finish her degree, rebuild her life, find someone her own age who can give her a future without shame. Because right now, Mr. Thorne, all you're offering her is a choice between her father and her lover. And no matter what she chooses, she loses. He was right, and that was the worst part. I took the envelope. Inside was a termination letter, already drawn up, waiting for my signature. I do love her, I said quietly. Then prove it, he answered. Let her go. The announcement went out 3 days later. Julian Thorne has stepped down from the St. Catherine's Restoration Project due to personal circumstances. The diocese is grateful for his contributions and wishes him well. Professional, bloodless, final. I packed up my apartment methodically, put the furniture in storage, gave notice to my landlord, accepted a job in Oregon, a library restoration, far away from everything. The diocese had paid the contract termination generously enough that I could afford to disappear. But before I left, I had to see the cathedral one more time. I went at dawn on a Sunday, when I knew the building would be locked and empty before morning services. I'd kept my keys and oversight in the rapid termination, or perhaps a final mercy from someone in the diocese office. The door opened silently, and I stepped into the nave. It was finished. Nearly finished. Sunlight poured through the reinstalled stained glass in rivers of ruby and sapphire and gold. The air smelled of lemon oil and incense. It was beautiful. Everything I'd envisioned, and I would never see it completed. Never attend the dedication. Never hear the bells. I walked the length of the nave slowly. I climbed to the bell tower and looked out at the city waking below. This building had bones again. It had a soul again. I'd given it that. But the cost, God? The cost? I heard footsteps on the tower stairs and turned. For a wild moment I thought it might be Clara, that she'd somehow known I'd be here. But it was Bishop Castellan who emerged, still in his pajamas under a heavy coat, his hair uncombed. I saw your car from my window, he said. My apartment overlooks the cathedral. We stood there in silence, two men who'd each lost something in this building. It's beautiful, I finally said. You should be proud. I am. He came to stand beside me. I'm also heartbroken. This cost me my daughter. She hasn't spoken to me in 3 weeks. When I try to talk to her, she looks through me. I'm sorry. Are you? He turned to me, and his face was haggard. Because I keep wondering if I did the right thing. I keep wondering if I chose principle over person, if I became so obsessed with protecting her that I forgot to trust her. You were trying to be her father. And you? What were you trying to be? Honestly, less broken than I am. I looked down at the cathedral. She deserves better than me. You were right about that. She deserves someone who can give her a life without complications. But she looked at me like I was worth something, and I was selfish enough to want that. He was quiet for a long time. Then, she sent me a letter yesterday, told me she's going to Oregon, that she's dropping out of her PhD program, that she's choosing you, and that I can either accept it or lose her. What? You didn't know? It wasn't a question. She hasn't told you yet. Bishop, I never asked her to. I was going to leave alone, I know. He sighed. Father Marcus showed me the security footage. I watched it for hours, trying to see exploitation, manipulation, sin. But all I saw was my daughter looking at someone the way her mother used to look at me. His voice broke. How do I compete with that? You don't have to compete. You're her father? That's not enough, apparently. He turned away. Go to Oregon. Build your life. And if my daughter shows up? He stopped. Tell her I kept the photo. Tell her it's on my desk. Tell her I love her, even when I don't understand. Tell her the door is always open. He left before I could respond, his footsteps echoing down the tower stairs. I stood there, as the sun climbed higher, painting the city in gold, and I thought about fathers and daughters and the impossible choices we make for love. We live in Oregon now. I finished the library restoration. It won an award I didn't attend the ceremony for. Clara finished her PhD remotely, defending her dissertation via video conference. The title was Resurrection Architecture, Memory, Loss, and Reconstruction in 19th Century American Cathedrals. She dedicated it to her mother. She doesn't talk to her father often, but she does talk to him. It started with emails brief, careful. 3 months ago, a package arrived with a framed photograph of us at Christmas. On the back, keeping this on my desk. Some nights, I still wake up and find her crying quietly in the dark, grieving a relationship that isn't dead but isn't fully alive either. I hold her and feel the weight of what she gave up for me pressing down like stone. We're happy, most of the time, but it's a scarred kind of happiness. She has a job consulting for a preservation nonprofit. I teach at the university. We have a small house with a garden. We have routines and inside jokes and a life built from rubble. But every Easter Sunday, Clara goes quiet. I know she's thinking about the cathedral dedication she didn't attend, the father who stood in the restored nave without her beside him. I know she's wondering if the cost was worth it. Last month, on a Sunday morning with rain drumming on the roof and coffee brewing in the kitchen, we were in bed, her leg, the prosthetic one, propped against the wall, my fingers tracing the curve of her spine. "Do you regret it?" I asked. The question I'd been avoiding for 18 months. She turned to face me, her brown eyes serious. "Yes," she said finally. "And no, I regret it had to be a choice. I regret that love became a weapon instead of a bridge. But I don't regret you. Even with everything it cost." I kissed her temple, breathing in that cedar shampoo she still used. "I love you." "I know." She threaded her fingers through mine. "I'm not perfect at all, you know. I'm still angry sometimes. I still wake up and feel cheated that I had to choose. I still miss my father every single day. Perfect is boring anyway," I whispered against her skin. "You're extraordinary." She smiled, then small, sad, but genuine. "We're both pretty extraordinary at fucking things up and building them back." I pulled her closer. "We're good at that too." Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, we held each other like the broken, extraordinary people we were, building a life from scars and choices and the stubborn belief that sometimes the things worth having are the ones that cost everything. Last week, another email arrived from Bishop Castellan. Brief, as always. But this time, at the end. "Clara, if you and Mr. Thorne want to visit for Thanksgiving, you'd both be welcome. I'm learning that being right matters less than being together. I miss you. Love, Dad." Clara hasn't responded yet. She keeps opening the email, reading it, closing it again. But yesterday, I caught her looking at plane tickets. "You think he means it?" she asked. "I think fathers don't say things like that unless they mean it." She nodded slowly. "Would you come with me? Even if it's awkward? Even if he hates you? Clara, I'd follow you into fire. Awkward Thanksgiving dinner is nothing." She laughed, that wind chime laugh I fell in love with in a ruined cathedral a lifetime ago. "Perfect is boring anyway, right?" "Right." I kissed her. "And you're extraordinary." The rain faded. The sun came out. And somewhere across the country, in a restored cathedral with new bells and stained glass windows that caught the light just right, a father kept a photograph on his desk and waited for his daughter to come home. Not perfect, not whole, but maybe slowly healing, just like us.